Luis Robert trade rumors are real. Bob Nightingale has reported that Luis Robert Jr. and the New York Mets have been linked in possible trades. The White Sox are looking at Mets prospects. We're going to talk about everything that there is to possibly talk about with these Luis Robert trade rumors in today's YouTube video and podcast episode. Make sure you are subscribed to the Mets'd Podcast YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the content coming at you. Videos after every single series and a third bonus episode every single week. So you're going to want to stick around and see that. And if you are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, whatever it is, drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. We really do appreciate it. James, when I saw this news, I know we've talked about this off camera many a times. Luis Robert would be awesome on this team. He'd be fantastic to have.
It'd be kind of perfect because when you look up and down this Mets roster right now, they're really strong and deep at basically every single position of the starting nine. I guess of the starting eight, really besides center field. I know that we love Tyrone Taylor. He's become a bit of a cult hero for Mets fans. He walks up to Ice Cube. He was really clutch in the playoffs last year. Really good defensive center fielder. He's a solid ball player. Jose Siri is out. He will be back at some point. But again, if you look at this team up and down, you're like, what position is the one of the guys on the field that would be the most worth upgrading? And of the lineup, it's very clearly center field. And Luis Robert Jr. is at a spot right now where he has 2 years of team options left on his White Sox contract, $20 million each for the next 2 seasons, and both it's totally voluntary money. So the White Sox can just get rid of him from the end of the season if they don't want to pay. If you trade for him, I'm sure it won't happen. If you want to get rid of him, you could do that with no risk at all. And he has been playing bad for 2 years, but I think we all know the potential a guy like him has. And it was funny for me to see during our last video when we talked about it briefly, how much the Mets fans don't like this idea, how much they don't want Luis Robert, how much he's sullied his name in baseball circles over his last 150 games when he's been really, really bad, but kind of forgetting the 4 years before that when he was really, really good the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, let's give the people some context in case they don't know. Over his last 137 games, Luis Robert has a 215 batting average, 282 on base, 366 slugging, and a 648 OPS. That's an OPS plus an 84. He's been a far below average hitter in the last season or so that he's played. Defensively, he hasn't been as sharp as he was during his prime seasons, a couple seasons ago back in 2023. But at the same time, as bad as those 2 years are, it's hard not to see what he did in 2023. It's hard not to see what he did in 2021. And granted, those are 2, 3, 4 seasons ago now. He was a younger player, but he's still very much in his prime. He's turning 28 in August. I can't see a guy who's a 5-win player who hit 38 homers, 80 RBIs, stole 20 bases, played Gold Glove defense just 2 seasons ago. And now his production has dropped off, partially because I think he's just on one of the worst teams, one of the worst organizations in Major League Baseball right now. In history. They literally were the worst baseball team ever last year. He was terrible. He only played in 100 games. I think that's honestly, truthfully, a bigger concern for me is the injury stuff with Luis Robert. We've only seen him play 1 season ever in his entire career where he's played more than 101 games. That was 2023. Otherwise, last season was the most he had played at 100. So injuries scare me. Performance is concerning, but I really do think it's just a change. He's a classic change of scenery guy, and I'd love to bring him in for the Mets.
Yeah, especially I don't know, people hate when we use this excuse, but it does seem very hard to be completely locked in every single day on a team that's, again, the worst team in Major League history.
Getting their teeth kicked in every single game.
And also a guy like Luis Robert who came up when the White Sox were still good. It's hard to forget that in 2020, 2021, like 2022, like until last season, they were at least still a competitive baseball team that had a couple of all-stars in rotation. They were making playoff runs. Like, they were a team that people legitimately, honestly, and openly picked to make a World Series run preseason for a couple of those years.
And Luis Robert is the only guy left from that team. He's looking around. It's that meme. It's looking around. It's like, where are all my friends? Like, everybody is gone.
And they let everybody go. And it's not an excuse that he would be disinterested, but it's also understandable from like a humanistic perspective why he would be disinterested. Also, the craziest thing about Luis Robert between this year and last year, when he's had much worse production compared to that amazing season he had in 2023, some of the underlying stuff is as good as ever been in Luis Robert's career, which is crazy. He still has the peak physical tools. He still has incredible bat speed. He still runs very well despite going through a lot of injuries because he's only 27 years old. I know, again, the defense hasn't been like the Gold Glove caliber best center field defense in the league type that was in 2023. But I still think that you kind of just like put him in a situation where that is more worthwhile. You probably get something at least close to that again. And the one thing that's always been the huge black mark, the black stain on Luis Robert's game has been his plate discipline, his swing and miss. That season last year, he had 141 strikeouts and 28 walks. That is it's hilariously bad numbers, but shockingly and kind of ironically, his swing decisions themselves weren't that bad. He actually improved his chase rate between 2023 and 2024. And so far this season, he's improved it dramatically. He's a league average right now in terms of how often he swings at pitches out of the zone. When 2 years ago, when he was one of the best hitters in the league openly, he swung at some of the most pitches out of the zone in the league. And with that, he still managed to attack the right pitches inside the strike zone. So I think that this season right now, we actually will see like a bit of an uptick from Luis Robert. We actually have seen that in his production over the last few weeks. He's stealing tons of bags. He's 15 stolen bases already. He's like, I am getting on base and I am running because I just kind of want to make my legs like let the blood get to them. He's got 5 homers. Like I know the batting average is horrible, it's ugly, but this is still the upside of truthfully one of the most dynamic center fielders in baseball. Because that's another part of it. There's not that many good center fielders around the league right now. He's clearly one of them.
Yeah, as much as we love Tyrone Taylor and we saw a little bit of the chaos of Jose Siri early on in the season, Luis Robert just has a mile-high ceiling where those guys, when Tyrone Taylor plays well for a couple weeks, that's about as good as it's ever going to get, is like a couple weeks of really good baseball and a nice fourth outfielder. Because that's truthfully what Tyrone was brought here for, and that's truthfully where Tyrone Taylor is most valuable, is as a fourth outfielder. Tyrone's playing good baseball right now, and his numbers are not too far off of Luis Robert's, who you would say is playing the worst baseball of his career possibly. So to me, like you mentioned, the upside of a guy like Luis Robert, who again, it is 2 years ago now, but 2 years ago, he was one of the most valuable outfielders in Major League Baseball for the White Sox in 2023. I'm not going to say we're going to get that version of him, but even just half of that being a 2 to 3 win player, which feels so incredibly attainable for a guy like Luis Robert, that would do wonders to this Mets team, not only offensively, but again, defensively, he is premier when he gives that effort.
And again, just have to stress again how much of a supply and demand situation this is because of where center fielders are, both within this Mets roster, upper minors, and around baseball. Going back 2 full seasons, where there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 kind of technically players in the entire league using Fangraphs offensive and defensive ratings as center fielders who are positive in both offense and defense. And that's when the minimum plate appearance threshold at 200. One of those players is Jackson Merrill, who was a rookie last season. Then you have, of course, the mainstays Julio Rodriguez, Byron Buxton, Pete Crow Armstrong, of course, and then Jarren Duran, who only plays center field sometimes. The Red Sox don't even really like playing him there. And the last guy in that list, of all people, is Trent Grisham. So that's just, again, right now in baseball, your center fielder can probably either hit or play defense. Usually, your center fielder can do neither. Like a guy like Harrison Bader, who we had last season. Of course, not neither, but he was a tremendous fielder. But usually, you kind of have to weigh how much defensive value you're getting out of a center fielder, which how much they're taking away from their offensive value of the team. And you don't have to worry about that with a guy like Luis Robert, with the injuries notwithstanding. But I do think that there's still just something really. There's a lightning rod inside of Luis Robert. Like there's something where you can kind of drop like a hammer onto this roster and be like, now we have really totally changed the complexity of this team with just a simple guy like that who's that dynamic.
Hey, FT fam. HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit, Cam, because we're busy and we would like all of the ingredients to cook up something nice and make us look like elite chefs at home.
You know what I do? I've got kids in basketball, I've got soccer, I've got baseball. And when they get home, there's a fresh meal and they think, "Oh, Dad, he's so great." Well, no, it's not me. It's HelloFresh. It's nutritious. It's packed full of good nutrients. The kids have good energy, and they look at me like I'm the greatest dad in the world. So make sure you go grab that HelloFresh because you know what? It's doing my family all the good.
Cook up dishes like chicken Dijon and pecan crusted trout, over 100 seasonal snacks, sides, and treats as well. Feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make the season even more delicious. Go to HelloFresh.com/FT10FM now to get 10 free meals with a free item for life. 1 per box with active subscription. Free meals applied as discount on first box. New subscribers only. Varies by plan.
Yeah, it's something that you can't really find too often, especially on the trade market usually as well. Like you don't find this caliber of ceiling available for what seems like is going to be a pretty attainable price point as well right now, because in that Bob Nightingale article, he also mentioned that the White Sox we're telling him, we're floating to him that the name that was being used as someone that they're interested in from the Mets side was Blade Tidwell. And I know we briefly talked about this on one of our most recent podcast episodes, but to me, them mentioning Blade Tidwell, it feels like that's almost too good to be true from the Mets side of strictly. I know there's a money aspect. There's other things that buy into it, right? Of course. But from a trade Blade Tidwell, who's like your 8th or 9th starter right now, for a guy who could be a premier center fielder, a guy who Blade Tidwell's not helping you win a World Series right now unless you trade him to get players that help you. That's his value to this team at this exact moment to help win a World Series in 2025. Luis Robert comes onto this team. He's actively doing that right now.
Yeah, I think that's also where this Mets team is at based on how well they've played through the first quarter of the season. Like, you played this well through the first quarter of the season, and when you had the 90-win projection like the Mets, like, okay, there's a conceivable World Series within our crosshairs. We have to start pushing in chips. And then we did a prospect report last week. That's been getting some pretty good. You guys have been liking that a lot on YouTube, so everyone go check that out last week. If you missed that prospect report, Mark and I go through the entire farm system once a month and talk about basically 30, 40 players in like a 30, 40-minute YouTube video. So a lot of good stuff there. But a lot of people were saying, hey, like, I can't believe you guys want to trade some of these prospects. Like, we're just starting to build up our farm system now. Like, why do you guys want to start dealing these guys already? Which I think that there are two sides to that coin. Like, we've seen a team like the Dodgers staunchly keep a lot of their prospects, even as they've been on a World Series path for a decade and a half now.
Yeah, Dalton Rushing would be a fantastic player in Major League Baseball right now. He's 24 years old, playing in AAA and dominating, and they have no room for him anywhere.
Yeah, and we've also seen with the Dodgers that somehow, some way, a lot of these prospects do manage to hold more value. Not more value, but they do still manage to hold value deep. Like, we saw the Dodgers trade Miguel Vargas in the middle of last season for a package that brought them back Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman, two guys that tremendously helped them win a World Series. We saw that firsthand during the NLCS, where it's about picking the spots and the moments to trade these prospects, but it's also playoff runs don't come around all the time. And if you have opportunities for that, like, that's what you play these sports to win, not to accumulate the best system of prospects. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to at the end of the day. And we're lucky that we're at a point now where this Mets team has turned over their minor league system in such an efficient way where we now actually have prospects to trade. So Mark and I aren't of the idea of like trade every single prospect. It's trade certain prospects at the right times to add enough to the Major League roster to make us more competitive in the pursuit of a World Series.
Yeah, and they're not mentioning Jonah Tong, which is a popular one that I know we said we would trade right now because that's cash in at the highest value. My goodness, I know MLB Pipeline somehow didn't have him in their top 100 prospects, which is crazy. But talk about cashing in on someone's value right now. The guy's striking out like 45% of the batters he faced. They're mentioning Blade Tidwell, who, as much as I like him personally, and I know James has seen some stuff from him in AAA that he likes as well as a future rotation piece for this Mets team. And we do need cheap players at points. We definitely need to have some cheap players on this roster at some point just to help with the Cohen luxury tax threshold here. But trading Blade Tidwell and maybe another prospect, because I can't imagine the haul's going to be that much more, especially because you're taking Luis Robert and his money and everything like that. It's hard not to be like, how do you pass on that? How do you not pull the trigger?
Well, I think that's the part of this that we probably did overlook a little bit when we talked about this briefly on the episode on Monday. And a couple of you guys have flashing your YouTube comments here. We got the Mac Dodd, and then we have Trada, just about the issues that, not the issues, but like the partial misses that we had talking about this. Because one, I compared this Luis Robert trade potential package to something like Cody Bellinger from the offseason as someone who was center field capable while also having a bit of a checkered past with their own production. And the fact that the Yankees were able to acquire him literally for free. All they acquired him was for money. But this person made a good point back to me where they said, hey, if the only thing the White Sox are looking for is salary relief, they will just release him at the end of the season because they have a team option on him.
I kind of wanted to argue with that on the episode when you said it, but we moved past it by the time that you finished talking, because I was like, well, if he stinks, you just cut him because you have team options the next 2 years. So as it's really just this current year right now. I know if you hold him, it's different, but if you're holding him, that means he's probably pretty good.
Yeah, and it's also the fact that, I lost where I was going with this. We said at the time. Oh, the fact that the White Sox are putting this out there this early in the season, being like, we are trading him. Blade Tidwell is a name that could be of interest to us. So it's like, we want a pitcher that has some potential and is borderline major league capable right now. And we're telling all of you guys, you contenders out there. We see the Mets need a center fielder. The Phillies need a center fielder. The Dodgers could use center fielder. There's about 10 contenders in the league that could use a guy like Luis Robert.
Center fielder. Every team,
basically,
except the Padres, pretty much. But they could just put someone in left field then, because they're playing Jason Hayward every single day.
Yeah, Jackson Merrill can move back to shortstop and really help the team there. But they're like, he's being traded by this time. So whoever gives us the best offer, that's who gets him. So that's kind of will be a part of this. So you will have to part with something at least of value. The other part of this, which was mentioned by, again, the other comment, I think that was by MacDog, and then also by Ken Rosenthal in Foul Territory, is that this, because Will Salmon also somewhat poo-pooed this too in a report on The Athletic, saying like, it's not a lie that the Mets have checked in Luis Robert, have been somewhat connected to the White Sox and Robert, with the center field being the spot of relative weakness in their lineup, but also being acutely aware that this is not the area of the most dire need. Because if the Mets do drop a hammer at some point this trade deadline, it will likely be for a starting pitcher. And we still don't know where those dominoes will fall. We don't know which teams are going to be selling yet. It's way too early to know that. But being over the fourth threshold of the luxury tax, the Cohen tax, we're paying 110% tax on every single dollar that we spend above that. So if you bring in $20 million Luis Robert contract, that is $42 million. For the rest of the season, that'll be $20 million for a $10 million half the season. So that's kind of what it comes down to, that if we are going to, again, drop a hammer, spend big money on a player, it's probably more like an ace than what would become an embarrassment of riches in our lineup.
No, yeah, I do think that a pitcher would be more valuable to this Mets roster and a frontline ace than Luis Robert at this exact moment. Those aces will probably cost a little bit more on the prospect side too, which is something to consider as well, where a guy like Blade Tidwell, who's not a hyped up prospect, we know he's going to be a major league pitcher at some point. We know that he can do it. That price tag is not nearly the same as if you were to go after, not anymore Sandy Alcantara, but maybe some of the other pitchers that are available if the Twins fall off again, Pablo Lopez, whatever it will be. The one thing I will say is until David Stearns trades for a big-time pitcher, I won't believe it until I see it. He never did it in Milwaukee, and I know it's different here because the Mets have money and they're not working on the same budgets as they were in Milwaukee. But he'll go out and trade for hitters. He'll make plenty of moves to go be aggressive to get guys who can swing the bat. One thing that he really never did in Milwaukee was go and get a big-time pitcher. You saw more of the Paul Blackburn types, the Wade Mileys, who would get traded for and added to that roster. He adds on the pitching side usually towards the bottom end to fill out some extra innings as the season gets longer, rather than for that frontline guy who's going to go out and just shove every single 5 days.
But don't you think that's partially the team context of those Brewers
Very
teams?
well could be. But also those Brewers teams, look at that. If you look at those rotations, they are way worse than the Mets ever were.
Totally, because I think David Stearns rightfully goes with his process of kind of like, at least then, I know I have a couple aces on top. Because at the time, he's like, I'm never going to buy pitching because I can never afford to keep pitching.
Yeah.
So I'll just buy a hitter because I need the hitter right now. And those Brewers teams historically were so much better pitching teams than hitting teams. Like those lineups always kind of failed to stack up to the pitching, and that's those teams would give. And by the early part of that tenure, he had 2 aces in that staff already in Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. And before long, there were some years they had borderline 3 aces on those teams.
You're missing the time periods. The
No,
time
I am,
periods.
because
You got
from 2019 they had Brandon Woodruff, and then from
Yeah,
2021 they
those-
had Burns, and then 2022 Peralta was there.
Yeah, those were the years that they didn't make as much noise. The years that they made noise were 2017, 18. 2018 is when they made it to the NLCS and lost
Yeah,
in
they
Game
had
7
nothing.
versus the Dodgers. They had
no
nothing.
pitching.
They had hitting, though. They had a ton of hitting. Christian Yelich, Lorenzo Cain, Ryan Braun played some games. Travis Shaw, Jesus Aguilar, even on the bench. Eric Dames was great. Mike Moustakas. Their pitching was Jolies Chastain, Chase Anderson, Junior Guerra, Brent Suter, Wade Miley, and young 22-year-old Freddie Peralta. I'm telling you, until David Stearns actually trades for a frontline starter, I won't believe it. I think he's more focused on bats. I think especially knowing that at the end of the day, as crazy as this sounds, you kind of just need innings. And if you score enough runs, you'll be able to win those games. And I think that's kind of the play he's going with right now.
Hey, for the card collectors out there, you need to know about Arena Club. You can check out our showrooms. We've all got cards in there. You can buy, you can sell, you can trade, and you can rip packs. They're called slab packs, Kratz. And then what happens if you don't like what you pulled?
Well, you get an instant offer. You get an instant offer, but before you get that instant offer, you can show your showroom around, kind of like when I used to put the cards in the sleeves and my buddies would come over and show them. Now, bang, show them on the phone. Instant offers right there if I need it.
Yep, that instant offer is for the estimated fair market value. Accept it on the spot. Acquire the best value for your money with Slab Packs, transparent checklists, and Arena Club's Slab Safe program. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, grading, or ripping packs, Arena Club is the safest, most trusted in the game. Right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/foul and use code FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/foul, code FOUL.
And think they probably have, and they should have, growing confidence in what this rotation could do moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's also coming with the caveat that like there are reinforcements coming back. Like not pretending these are trade deadline acquisitions, but like we're
Yes.
going to have Sean Manaea and Frankie Montas pitching soon. David Stearns went out and purposefully, in Montas' case, acquired him, and in Manaea's case, reacquired him this offseason to be two of the top projected 3 or 4 guys this rotation. They haven't thrown an inning yet. The Mets are the best starting pitching rotation in the league. Whereas this lineup, hilariously, has been slightly underwhelming while still being quite good. But also, we were at the game last night, Monday against Keens, and I was looking at the Mets lineup, and I was just like, wow, all these guys are homegrown. Like, this is sick.
Yeah.
Like, the only not homegrown guys in the entire lineup were Lindor, Soto, and Acuna. But then even the whole bottom of the lineup between Alvarez, Beatty, Acuna, all those guys are free. Jeff McNeil was re-signed. Vientos was free in the middle. Then Nimmo has the contract, and Pete homegrown with the 1-year big contract. And even every pitcher we used in that game yesterday, everyone's making the league minimum. Between David Peterson, who I guess is not making the minimum anymore at arbitration, but then Buteau, Dednell Nunez, and Huascar Brazoban. So we beat the best pitcher in baseball, second best pitcher in baseball yesterday. Every single pitcher is making the minimum amount of money they're allowed to make, and the entire roster, except the entire lineup, 2/3 of the lineup was homegrown players.
Yeah, no, that stuff is really cool.
So we do have that in the bottom of the roster where, like, if you tell Steve Cohen, like, hey, this improves our World Series odds from, like, 17% to 19%.
And you remember that was the big conversation you had with Billy Epler was about the World Series odds stuff, where it was like our odds if we keep Verlander and Scherzer versus if we trade them. And he was like, let's get rid of these guys. Let's start it over again.
Of course, he's a money man. Steve knows. If you tell Steve probability and that stuff, and the Mets are one of the teams who have increased their World Series probability the most through the early part of the season because of the fact they're winning the division, the fact that the Dodgers have been really good, but they have lost a couple more guys and you expected them to lose. Like, getting something like home field advantage in the playoffs isn't something that's out of reach. Of course, the first goal is winning the division, but these are things that are now more attainable 25% of the way through the season than they were on March, what was it, 28th, whenever we had opening day. So the context has changed a little bit where we see some stuff now. We really see some stuff. And then the one kicker would be here if we can attach any prospect to get Starling Marte off this team. Because if we can get rid of...
how you get rid of Starling Marte is for a guy like Luis Robert. Just like take him till the end of the year. You have no money. You don't have to worry about anything. And we'll give you like even maybe a little better prospect. Yeah.
But then that becomes like the conversation of is Steve... But also that's something that's not Steve Cohen. You think Steve Cohen prefers to not foot an extra $2 million bill, couple dozen mil for Steve Cohen? Who cares? Instead of that, just to get rid of a player, you'd probably rather just eat the Starling Marte contract, DFA him, rather than trade a better prospect.
I also wonder too, and I think this is very much in play. This will be the last thing I say about it. Why can't the Mets do both? Why can't the Mets trade for Luis Robert and go get a pitcher too? If Steve Cohen really is obsessed with like this probability of like, can we win the World Series? Is this our shot? And David Stearns tells him, we get these guys. This is our shot. We can go ahead and get the World Series right now. Why would he not? Why would they not make both trades? I think that's very, very possible as well.
It is very, very possible. But then again, now you're into the determination of the game theory. Like, is this our shot? Is this not their best shot? Like, should we add these guys for this year? Is this handcuffs too much in the offseason? Like, is this a guy like Robert? The big thing that's cool for me about the trade is that if you get him and he's good, you get him for 2 more years.
And if he stinks, you cut him. He's gone.
And the whole time he's in his 20s. And next year, as much as we love Tyrone Taylor, he doesn't have a contract. So like the Mets really don't have, and they don't have a center fielder that's like busting down the door of the future. Luis Acuna has played there, not really.
Jose Siri is super DFA-able. Like, we like his craziness, but like if he didn't hit in like the 10 games he played with the Mets at all.
Also a tremendous 4th outfielder.
Yeah.
Who doesn't make any money. Like there's definitely ways to thread the needle where Luis Robert makes sense for this year, next year, and the season after, which is why he is so attractive at this moment.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll wait and see. Probably going to be a lot more trade rumors coming out as the days get closer and closer to the trade deadline, which is still so far away. But I love being connected to the premier talent available on the trade deadline as of May 11th or whatever it was that Bob Nightingale dropped that article. Thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you for watching this episode. Let us know in the comment section. Do you think the Mets should trade for Luis Robert? We want to hear what you guys have to say. Remember to subscribe to the Mets'd podcast on YouTube as well as on your podcast feed, Spotify, Apple, Google. Drop us a rating, drop us a review, download, and subscribe. You can follow James on social media at
James Shiano.
And I'm Draft Nick Mark with a C. Thank you guys for listening and watching. We will catch you all on this next episode after the Pirate series. Peace out.
Peace out, guys. Let's go Mets.